You're live, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, business meeting, November 16th, 3:30 in the afternoon, second board meeting, in the month of November. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Our agenda at hand has us first and foremost approving the minutes from our November 2nd meeting in 2020. And did we have any additions, updates, or changes to those minutes as presented by Clerk Sakovich?
No change, but I have a question.
Sure.
I have a question here, came through on my phone. The agenda is not posted.
I sent it earlier to Teresa. I will text her.
She usually posts on the website.
It's not posted. Yeah, Don Pollock wants to know why it's not posted.
I'll put it in the comments on YouTube, and we can also show it here if need be.
Okay.
Okay,
thank you.
so yeah,
Thank you.
yeah. Let's make sure we get the agenda up there, please. So minutes from November 2nd. Look
They
good,
look-
correct?
Look good to me.
Right. Any recommended changes, edits? Everybody good? Okay. Next item is we have Brett Bailey actually moving over to the town of Smithtown. Is that correct?
Correct.
So we're accepting his resignation letter as of November 6th. What's the plan, guys? Are we looking, did we pull the ordinance inspector list? Or we have, Joe, can you remind me?
Yes, we pulled the inspector list and we have been speaking with the top candidate who is very interested in this position. And we hope to bring him on following Thanksgiving holiday week.
So the week of December 30th?
November.
No,
Not
you said the
December
week-
30th. The
No,
week
no,
after
so-
Thanksgiving weekend,
Right, which is November 30th,
Yes.
the week.
November 30th.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, give or take.
Okay, thank you.
We're just
Uh,
finalizing that with him.
Okay, thank you. We have a part-time village center night manager to hire. Basically, this is a bank of part-time personnel who are available to manage the building at night. So they're part-time, not permanent. And due to COVID, we've had some of the seniors that actually have acted or worked as part-time building managers unwilling and or unavailable to work at night in the building for us. So welcome, Al Gordon. We had a request, I guess, with this drainage project, Joe. There's a lot of silt and sand that came down the Brook Road drainage easement there and sort of built up at the bottom of the driveway there, at the bottom of Brook Road, sort of clogging up some of the outfall pipes. And so we have an additional, first of all, the bid came under our projected estimate, correct, to do the work?
Correct.
So we had anticipated an expenditure of approximately 80,000. The bid
Correct.
came in at what, 662?
68, I think it was.
Okay. So this additional work, while they're there mobilized to clean up the outfall here, is well spent.
Absolutely. So the pond at the bottom of the where the drainage project is going to be undertaken is completely filled with sand and other sediment, and it no longer represents a pond. In addition to that, as that flow is coming down the hill, it continues to accumulate into that pond, and any excess, especially if there's a heavy rainfall, is being brought out into the spillovers that run along Brook and underneath some residents there, homes there, and it's continuing to clog up those overflows as well. So by cleaning out this pond and cleaning out those overflow areas and adding some additional riprap around some of the driveways leading into the residents there is going to clean up everything there. It's going to restore the pond as it was, and we'll just finish up this project.
Good.
Question?
Yes, Bruce.
Do we need any approvals on that? Is that something we could just do to dig that pond out, or what's the story on that?
Right, we had to go and file a permit with the DEC for the original drainage project that's running up the hill down Longfellow. And when we realized that we would need a permit from DEC to restore this pond, we added that to the DEC permit. So we did file with the DEC for not only the drainage along that valley that runs down Longfellow to Brook, but in addition, we added the pond and the other components as well.
Oh, very good.
Thank you, Joe. Stan, we have a schedule of minimums. And I just want to clarify, this is from 2021 through 2025.
That's correct.
And everybody received that as an additional attachment to the file, I think. Did we see that? Did Barbara distribute those to us?
Yes, it was.
Recommended minimum. So everybody has that schedule in front of them?
I would like to add, I would like this to be contingent upon the approval of the council,
The CCMAC?
the
That's fine.
CCMAC. It's another one of those issues where we've got to get the rate sheets out and we're meeting before their meeting.
Okay, so we met with the CREST organization, Stan, myself, Brian McMillan, Joe Palumbo was in the room. I think, Joe, don't let me talk for you. Maybe Barbara Sakovich, Enrico, Danny Scarda, and Michael Bonawat represented the CREST organization, particularly looking at the minimums moving forward, and a lot of discussion about, this year at the turn and at the restaurant, and concerns from the membership with respect to how things, started out this year and how things are going. Now the club, the public steakhouse is open. And, so we also went over the different categories of membership and the minimums associated with each category, try to make this as fair and reasonable as possible, with not a lot of harm to our members, and basically saying that the members that are happy are spending their minimums and re-upping their cards every time you, for instance, put $100 on your card, you get $110 worth of food. So there is a little bit of a incentive to do that. But I guess between crunching the numbers and looking at the various memberships, this was the recommended minimum. And I don't think there's that much of a change from last year to this year. Is that correct, Stan?
It's a $35 increase, pretty much across the board.
Okay.
It's quite a bit less than what they wanted, but it's more in line with what we think is the appropriate minimums.
So, Brian, this may lead to yet another addendum. The problem that we have is that in the addendum that we put together when they took over, we only listed 3 membership categories. So, we want to make sure that we're protected when we create a membership, and obviously something such as a corporate membership that ties a little bit of a higher minimum to it, because you have multiple members of the corporation, and obviously people are playing golf and entertaining afterwards. We want to be, we feel we need more language in that contract to kind of give us the ability to work together as memberships evolve and, things happen. So also we expressed a lot of concern about the hours of operation at the turn. So there are things that we discussed that we boiled down. I think Barbara was there taking minutes of the meeting. Is that correct, Barbara?
Yes, correct.
That we foresee definitely having a yet another addendum to the contract coming after we approve this and submit it to the CREST organization. Our opinion is they need a lot of work on the turn side of the parking lot. They had a really difficult start due to COVID this year. The restaurant side, we're very happy, but of course, they're only operating at half engine set. So hopefully, when we go into our spring of 2021, we are in a all engines fired situation. We shall see. Are there any comments from the board members? Stan has spent a lot of time on this, so any comments or questions or concerns?
I do. I have a question.
Kathy Ann?
Yes, Stan, have you talked to any of the members about these increases, and what's the feedback that you've gotten so far?
I've talked to quite a few of the members on this, and based upon what the original contract called for, membership is going to be extremely happy with this, I believe.
Okay, good.
We've had numerous meetings with not with the entire Crest group, but I've had 5 meetings with Michael Bonowit himself. This was mailed to him 10 days ago, and no response came back, either positive or negative. Part of the reason we did it, Margot had explained, they only put 3 categories in the contract. As you can see, we got many more than that, and I think it has to be somehow added to that contract. Short answer is yes, I think membership is going to be happy with the $35 increase. I don't know too many members in my circle that haven't reloaded at least once or twice.
And if you think about it, if golf season's 10 months or even 9 months, you're looking at $50 a month to have to spend.
Right.
It's a lunch, or you're not even a family dinner. So, it helps. It helps our vendor, quite frankly. I mean, it's not been an easy year for them.
Okay, thank you, Stan.
Any other comments or questions or concerns? So we'll pass this though, Barbara, on the agenda, say subject to approval or recommend, I don't know how you want to word that, Stan. Final recommendation from the CCMAC or what?
Yes, that'll come tomorrow night. I'm positive it's going to be approved, but I'd like them to look at it and approve it.
Okay. So. After that, we have the warrants. By the way, I got word that Barbara, can you double check the agenda should be now up on the website?
Yeah, she just texted me. She apologized.
Okay, good. So apparently she had to take her kids to the doctor or whatever, but even if we get and I apologize because I only got back to Barbara probably around 9:30 this morning with my agenda item. So, but at least it's up there now. We have the warrants. Denise, as you pointed out, general warrant is high this particular cycle because we have our repeat what you had reported prior.
The retirement, the annual retirement invoice is 444 in general and 52 in the country club. And then
Okay.
health benefits as usual.
Health benefits. Okay, so
Yeah.
all encumbered
Yes.
in the budget. Okay. And country club, we have 91.
Yeah, 52 is the
Oh,
retirement.
that's 52 in there. Okay.
Yeah.
Capital, is this another expenditure to Barnum? Yeah, the 254 coming out of capital. I imagine that substantial payment is partially due to a payment to F&F.
Yes, it is.
Okay, Joe, you obviously went through that invoice, and
Yes.
Kevin, both you and I.
Yeah.
Okay.
And D&B went through it, our engineer working on a project with us and signed off on it.
So I just make a note to myself. I'm going to look to see where we are financially on that project, because as soon as the project is complete and paid, we make application to Suffolk County for our $200,000 in jumpstart money to be reimbursed.
I have a
Okay.
spreadsheet, Margot, we can go over.
And,
Well,
Okay, good.
and we're pretty close.
Right. Okay.
We're pretty close.
Good. So I don't believe there's going to be any other action items that come out of tonight's, this afternoon's meeting. there are a lot of discussion, but I don't know if there are, and if there are, Barb, I guess we'll just add them. So let's just stay on point. And I guess I'll make a motion to approve 1 through 6 at this time.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, good. Thank you. So Bruce Miller and I have been working, on the status of our plant and the future of our plant. And we did submit in your packet a copy, actually last week, a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. That is the phase 2 product of Mr. Bob Foxon, our consulting engineer. A very complicated document to read. And sorry. Oh, I thought I heard somebody make a comment. But
I said, I'll say.
oh, I'll say, okay. So basically there are 3 takeaways from this, from the findings. And basically we're looking at the forecast, what LIPA is saying the energy needs are going to be for Long Island versus, the rest of New York State. And interestingly enough, their forecast for Long Island is the only region that's showing a downward modification in the demand for electricity to the tune of approximately 500 megawatts over time. And that was sort of an interesting finding because it definitely contradicted with the other findings in the other regions. I'm just trying to see if I can open up my file here. And I don't know why I can't. Hold on a second. I had it open before. Pardon me. That's what I'm saying. I'm bouncing between a lot of things today. Okay. And so we call it the load forecast. And, so there's definitely a discrepancy. That's one of the things that we need to request of LIPA to find out on what basis did they make this load forecast, which shows that against all the other regions and against all the things that are happening on Long Island, they came out with a forecast that shows our energy demand declining on Long Island. There's a couple things that were taken into consideration, and one is, of course, the introduction of a lot of energy efficiency programs. So, for instance, how many more electric vehicles do we think are going to have an impact on either increasing the demand? And I think that's my slides here are not numbered, unfortunately, but that's the slide that talks about the EV peak load analysis, and even looking at that plus some other factors, the things that Mr. Foxon was looking at, electric cars plus the introduction of electric heat pump units. So people installing heat pump units, electric heat pump units instead of gas-fired or oil-fired heat pump, home heating elements. They all look like they're going to drive the demand up, instead of down. And we talked a little bit about when National Grid had the moratorium on gas installations, how a lot of our major projects here moved to installing electric heat pump units. So we felt we had to challenge a lot of the study, and if not necessarily challenge it, but understand how are they doing their analysis, because it's not really jiving with some of the things that we're looking at independently. And that makes a difference to us because, we're hoping that even though there are the introduction of a lot of energy efficiency, initiatives, for instance, here in the village, we're converting all our light fixtures on that grant from NIPA over to LED, which will lower the demand. But even despite that, we don't feel that that's going to lower the curve enough, especially during what we call the peak load times. Everybody comes home from work at around 6 o'clock, and the first thing they do is especially now, they're going to put the lights on, they're going to start cooking dinner. And at that peak load time, we're still seeing that there's going to be like enough of a demand that at the peak load time, we may not have, based on their forecast, enough on Long Island online generation to meet that demand. And that's important to us because we're trying to build the case that our power plant in its existing form, the old iron, is important, but also a plan to repurpose our site to being a much more energy efficient power plants that can, not take 24 hours as it does now to boot up, but instead something much more modern that can meet the demands for, the peak load in a much more timely fashion. The reason that's important, we're looking at the Ørsted project, which is the offshore wind. It's bringing 800 megawatt of new energy to through the wind turbines. It'll connect to our Holtzville station, and that'll be able to distribute that 800 megawatt throughout the grid on Long Island. That's really important, but when the wind is not blowing, we still feel that you need to have other ways of getting that energy to people, especially during the peak times. There's a lot of discussion about the installation now of battery backups. And in fact, LIPA is going to be going out for an RFP in the beginning of the year, 2021. They're anticipating that our site, as well as some of the other locations, will be a candidate for a backup battery to be able to store up to 50 megawatt of energy. And Bruce, correct me if I'm wrong, but that battery will only back up that energy for a number of hours. I think it's like 4 hours. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, say again?
The backup batteries that LIPA is looking at building.
The
They can
megawatts is, yeah. Yeah,
I'm sorry?
there's a possibility of 50 megawatts from us. I'm having terrible internet problems.
Okay.
50 megawatts from us.
Right. So at our location,
Storage. As a maybe.
yeah, I can't really hear him. Can you guys hear him?
No.
So the challenge with the backup, okay, we can't really hear you, Bruce,
Yeah,
but
I'm just having a lot of trouble. I'll maybe send an email around or something like that. I had
okay. So the challenge with the backup batteries
Cablevision in and just noticed it.
is they
email,
don't store electricity for a long time. So it's a way of storing energy, and when the wind doesn't blow, then you can basically take this stored up energy and use it. But it's not a long-term solution. It doesn't generate new power. So you can see that there's going to be competitive bidding. I think the RFP is only for a couple hundred backup, a couple hundred megawatts, and you can see that there's a lot of stiff competition out there between all these other locations, such as Barrett, which could take 100 megawatt battery, Holbrook 100, and all these various other locations. The reason why these locations are here, that's where the grid is. That's where you can actually hook these batteries into the power lines and disperse that energy. So, we're looking at the resiliency of the power supply here on Long Island, but we're also looking to make sure that we have enough on-island generation, which is mandated by New York State ISO, that, in the event of a storm, we're not relying on these other sources of power. We have cables coming, for instance, from the north. We have cables coming from the south. And we want to make sure that we have enough ability to produce energy on island so that, God forbid, these cables are taken out. We're not, without power. So the study is very complicated. It takes into consideration a lot of things that are happening, not just on our island, but, in the marketplace overall. I think Bob Foxen is a great consultant because I think he's got his thumb on the scale in many ways. We do have follow-up work to do. One of the things is to get in front of LIPA as soon as possible to understand how they did their forecast, to ask them what their vision is, certainly for our plant and for energy needs on Long Island. Our purchase power agreement that is our golden ticket for our power plant is looking to expire in mid 2025. And we just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to keep our site viable as an opportunity for repurposing and, to complement perhaps a battery. So, National Grid is going to be when we spoke to them, they will be putting in a bid to, build a backup battery system for 50 megawatt at our location. And that'll keep our site even, I think more valuable as we go. I know the board, my concern is that these studies and this research is not cheap. It's costing us a lot of money to continue to study this and make sure that we are aware of where the power industry is going and making sure that our plant and that Port Jefferson remains a viable conversation in the future of energy on Long Island. So, the next step is to go to, I think it was phase 3 on Mr. Foxon's proposal, Barbara, which I think we approved phases 1 and 2 and said, let's see where that gets us and then decide whether we head into phase 3,
Correct.
which is to establish those meetings with LIPA and continue to do this work. I want to talk to Denise maybe tomorrow about moving some money from a capital account instead of draining this money from our operating account. I think LIPA and the viability of our power plant needs to stay on the forefront of our long-term plan. And I don't think that this is something that we can say we can't afford to do right now. So I would like for the board to, if anybody has obviously more questions about this, we're going to post this to our website so the public can see it. Again, it's a complicated document. It doesn't really, it takes a lot of sort of LIPA 101 reasoning to get through it. But I think I would recommend that we continue to do our work with Mr. Foxon. And Barb, do I need to approve that phase 3 tonight? I
You
don't think
told
that
him you
was
would discuss it with the board.
right. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to work with the treasurer, and I'll have it on the agenda for our next meeting to move forward with Mr. Foxon on phase 3, because I want to make sure we are fully, digesting this document and understanding where we're going. Are you guys okay with that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the 50 megawatts for the battery is what our site is the maximum capacity that our site can hold. We were sent this GE thermal hybrid brochure. Is there any chance to do some kind of hybrid model on the site? Have we been given multiple options for the site as far as battery and something else, or is the site only viable for battery?
Right. So the GE thermal hybrid solution there is, I think, part of our long-term plan for our plant. So right now, the RFP that LIPA is putting out is only for the battery backup component. But we see something like this to be the type of power plant that's resilient, that can fire up within 15 minutes to sort of be able to back up, when the backup battery is no longer providing the power and the wind isn't blowing. So again, our old iron power plant takes 24 hours to fire up that boiler to create energy. That is, in the resilient marketplace, that's not going to work for us here on Long Island. So yeah, that's kind of part of the long-term plan for our site.
So is Mr. Foxon looking in this phase 3 or previous phases looking into hybrid models so that we can be planning, sort of pitching as part of our RFP, saying that this is going to be part of another larger project that Port Jeff is planning, or are we just looking at this one component right now?
So we don't own the power plants; they're owned by National Grid,
right. And
we don't issue RFPs. We can only go to LIPA and say, listen, if you're looking to provide or stabilize our on-island generation, because our power plant fires up approximately 400 megawatt when it's on full steam, and that hasn't happened in a long time. But our site is so valuable because we still have the interconnect, we have the gas and fuel, oil, we can switch it on and off. And our site is valuable for that reason, that we're saying, don't just terminate and mothball our plant. You can actually, recommission it to, an example, here's this hybrid, which, we have a peaker plant also at our site. So I think this is going to be part of the long term, to actually repurpose some of the old iron into more resilient, more energy efficient, you know, um, systems. And that is something that ultimately, yes, we're going to pitch to LIPA if they go out and say, they just got 800 megawatt of power. If they decide to repurpose our plants, this is the type of system that we think would work at our site within our footprint. So, but we don't go out for the RFP. Only
No,
LIPA.
no,
only
we're pitching an idea to someone else to go out for the RFP.
Yeah, no. So LIPA is only going to go out for an RFP for more power or to replace old power at the time that they feel it's needed. So right now their forecast is for less power, and we're not sure why they're forecasting the demands of Long Island to be less when their forecasts for all the other regions of New York are for more power. So until we get to them, we understand why, they're not even convinced that they need more power. We got a pretty steep slope to get them to the point of saying, well, at least repurpose our plant to make it a much more energy efficient, 250 megawatt thermal hybrid with a backup battery, and take down the old iron, because it's really expensive to run the old iron units. That's one of the reasons why, people thought it was our taxes that was making your bill very high. It's the cost of running these old plants.
Right.
That's a big part of the driving cost. So it's a very robust conversation we're having right now. This is about 12 years of my experience with the village of Port Jefferson, becoming a energy power person. But yeah, so Rebecca, to answer your question, that is an example of something that we would be recommending at our site, but we're not at the point where we're making that recommendation now. We're trying to study all the needs of Long Island and then go to pitch to them with National Grid perhaps as our partner at the site to say, hey, this is what we can do here. And it fits all of the models that you're forecasting for Long Island.
Very good. Thank you for that clarity.
I hope I clarified that, because it's a big, long answer. And we could talk more about that too, because it's an interesting project. So with that, I'm going to dovetail into the fact that our LED lighting project with NIPA, the installation of lighting has actually started this week. I think they said they're starting today. Is that correct, Joe?
Yes.
Okay. So, and they gave us this weird grid system as to what streets they're going to be working on. We said, no, guys. First of all, they gave us really short notice. I think they sent us an email on Friday at 4:45.
That is correct.
And, for 8 months, they're like, we're starting tomorrow. And so we said, listen, we need to give our residents a little bit more notice. There really shouldn't be anything that's disruptive to the way you're doing business. But, when you see these trucks out on the road, your roadways, they're replacing your Cobra lights, your overhead Cobra lights, and then they're going to get in deeper into the neighborhoods and replace the fixtures on your neighborhood lights. So we will have a list, hopefully on our website, of the streets and as the progress continues. Is that correct, Joe? That's our goal.
Yes, we are working on creating something that's much more comprehensive than they already sent. But in addition to that, something that is going to be read easily by the residents when we issue it to social media or, our website. So in terms of disruption, though, they told me that it's going to be either 1 or 2 trucks that'll be out at each site. So it should be little to no disruption at all. In fact, it'll look like routine maintenance as they're replacing the Cobra headlights.
Good. Okay. We'll move on. PILOP, payment in lieu of parking. The question was presented. We're not going to make a decision tonight, but I think, we need to kind of think about this a little bit. And Joe, this was presented by an applicant that's currently in process at a building where and make sure I get this right, a prior applicant on this property or user of the property had paid a payment in lieu of parking because their use intensified that space. So, example, it may have been an office that went to a restaurant which then required more parking. And because obviously they couldn't provide parking, they paid into the PILOP. Restaurant goes away And now we go back to a lower dense use. Brian Egan, the question presented, and I don't think we contemplated this when we, wrote our PILOP legislation. Does that higher parking count stay with the building? Stay with
Good
the
question.
property?
Is it kind of like a Pine Barren credit? Does that credit of the paid for pileup continue with the property? I have to look at the way the code is drafted. Let me think about that. My initial reaction, I think, is going to be no, because it's kind of virtual to start with. The concept of the parking spaces are virtual, but I understand, and they're tied to the individual use. So if the use goes away, so does the payment, and those virtual spaces also go away. And if later it comes back, to play out the question, if on a less intense use now becomes intensified again, can that more intensified use the credit that 2 uses ago paid for? You get into this rabbit hole where it could go like, I don't know how you would even manage those. They're virtual spots. So I don't really know how you manage those bank of credits per use and per building, but let me think about that.
Does the code say any time limit, or we don't know yet?
No.
That that pileup goes for so many years, or nothing like that?
The pileup is much like a CO for a use. The pileup is tied to that use. So it would go, if a bank or something went in that location, it was there for 100 years, it would conceivably go for 100 years. But, I think it's an interesting question. If a restaurant goes in, it goes from a low office, which is a low use, to a restaurant, which is a high use, pays a pileup, the restaurant goes out of business in a year, goes back to a barbershop, which less use. What happens to those spots? I think that they evaporate. I don't think it's not meant to bank, but I will look at the law.
Okay, appreciate that. Because ultimately, the board, really needs to look at the code as it was written and sort of make sure that it's clear for our planning department and the applicants moving forward. Brian, we
As I
just
put
blew
my-
up your.
As I put
did
my
we just-
code book over there, yeah.
We just blew up your desk there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I Barbara, did you add this bullet on my great job on pacing projects? Did you add that as like a pat on the back for Joe?
No, I just I copied and pasted.
Okay, because all right, nice job, Joe. Pat you on the back. I don't know.
I didn't know that was for me.
Well, all of you guys
I-
are doing a great job on keeping on top of the project. So thank you.
I sabotaged Barbara's computer. I added that.
That's really funny. Long Island Railroad meeting. I have a meeting coming up with the Long Island Railroad to discuss, the Village of Port Jefferson has a longstanding contract and agreement with the Long Island Railroad that we maintain the parking lot at the main station. What does that mean? We're responsible for snow removal, for planting, for cleanup, for, light comes down, we replace it. So when the parking lot was redone by the Long Island Railroad, that, by the way, that lease agreement or that agreement between the entities has expired about 10 years ago. And we were working on sort of a month to month because I said, listen, I'm not taking care of anything until we deliver, a parking lot brand new pursuant to our master plan. And here we are. But we're meeting with the Long Island Railroad to review that document, because one of the things that was discussed is that when we have a major project being built, which now we have the Conifer project with conditional site approval, but that's a final conditional site approval. It's been, finalized by the Building and Planning Department. We wanted to see if if they would contemplate, as they have in other locations on Long Island, having that main parking lot metered. And for that reason, so that, people can come and go to work, take the train, come home from work, go home. And then the parking lot can be opened up for, people to come and help support uptown, Upper Port. These are things that are happening in other communities. They said they were not, they would not object to that, but, they would provide for very long-term parking. But for the car eventually to have to be moved, which has, the lack thereof has prevented Mr. Gallagher, our supervisor of the DPW, to be able to maintain that lot, especially in a snowstorm, because people get stuck in the city, their car is sitting there, and we can't plow that lot properly. So we're going to be looking at that. We're going to be looking at the interconnect of the Station Street and how the new entrance to the Long Island Railroad parking lot now is going to be closed off, and it's going to then instead come in off of Station Street. We're going to talk about the interconnect, the power box that has to be buried for the Conifer project below the Long Island Railroad parking lot. And of course, they're going to be tying up some loose ends, I guess, on the Texaco side. So a lot of stuff going on with the Long Island Railroad, never ending movie, but that's going to be coming up, and hopefully we'll tie up, Brian, with your help, a good document for the Village of Port Jeff. Conifer, as we know, with the conditional approval, and at our last board meeting, we did set and accepted the parkland fee. I don't think there's an official request yet from the applicant for us to reduce that fee. Brian, have you gotten an official request?
There was a letter from Conifer's council requesting consideration of in-kind donation as opposed to actual monetary. So that's still pending before you.
Okay, so we did receive their payment, and that money is in our bank. I think, for the board to have a conversation, I think we've kind of touched on this in the fringes. I don't think we have the tolerance at this point or a project for Upper Port, because we think we really might, and I'll go around the board. The sentiment, I believe, is to keep that money earmarked in a special account for uptown use. There are stresses, on our other recreational facilities, of course, by the addition of new residents. But because we're really trying to revitalize this area, I feel that we should, not even make a decision today about any kind of reduction or in-kind service. I think we keep the money in the bank, restrict it for use for uptown, Upper Port, and we discuss it at a later time. How does everybody else feel about that? I'll pass the baton to Deputy Mayor Laux first.
No, I kind of agree with that.
Kind of, or
Well, there've been suggestions about the use of the Highland area, some kind of a park over there, some kind of a recreational addition to that 4 or 5 acres that we have over there. And I think that's probably where it should go.
okay, Bruce?
We had, at the time that the shipyard was built, had discussions with them where they wanted to provide in-kind use, which was recreational facilities for their own people. I hope we're not going down that road again.
Yeah, no, that we already passed that road. We're taking the full fee here. It's in the bank. The request is for the return of it in lieu of a project, which we don't really have yet. But no, and I agree. That's why we're here. Kathy Ann?
Yes, I agree with what Stan said. I know there's been some ideas thrown around about that area up there for parkland use, and more of a user-friendly area. So I am definitely all for keeping that money on reserve until something can come up. I think it's imperative that we continue the progress and the ball rolling and the uptown redevelopment. And I think that's a big part of it. So
Okay.
I agree.
Okay, good. So we'll agree then to not make any, I'm sorry, Rebecca. I know that part of your report.
It's okay, Mayor. Don't worry.
Sorry about that. I apologize.
I have nothing to say on this subject. No, I do. I think it is incredibly important to take those funds and keep them adjacent to the area, and look to where we can use those funds to a project that Port Jefferson Village can take on. Going back to the power plant, we don't own it. We can't say what goes on there, but with village property that we own and projects that we can spearhead, there are things that we can do to build community and to even support local businesses by attracting people to an area. So I think there's huge potential to develop some kind of recreational space that helps both support and build community, help support the community that's already there, and also support incoming and existing businesses.
Great. Okay. So I'm just prior to my cutting you off, I think we'll just agree to leave it where it is for the time being. And Brian, do you need an official sort of response from us, or?
Oh, I think that if we take no action on their formal request, I think that's fine.
Okay, thank you. COVID-19 update. Obviously, it's all over the news, folks. The local impacts are to our local establishments. Eating, in particular, restaurants and bars must be closed now by 10 p.m. There's a question on enforcement. The clarification comes that this is we are code enforcement officers. We are not park rangers or police. We don't have the authority to enforce the state's mandate. So if you see something and you're concerned about it, I'm going to recommend you continue to call 311, which is the hotline for Suffolk County reportings of COVID type violations. I think overall, Barbara, what happened to our banner? I guess because the holiday decorations went up, our banner came down.
No, the banner was actually in that heavy wind that weekend. It was torn down. It's out for repair now, and I'm waiting for it to be returned any day, and it will go back up.
Okay, thank you. I think largely locally, we see a lot more of our resident and visitor base wearing masks when out in public and taking proper precautions. School districts, they did report on our call. We had a countywide call Friday afternoon at 4:00. Great way to start the weekend. And they were saying schools are safe, and there's very low cases of spread throughout the schools. So we're doing great in our schools. I think throughout the community, I think we're trying to take every precaution. And unfortunately, we are entering, the colder weather season and gathering time when people like to gather. I think the biggest, I think disappointment is, this is the time that people like to go out and have, a holiday meal. And unfortunately, they limited the number of people around a dining table in the restaurant to 4. So that really cuts it. That really hurts our restaurant. So we're going to be hoping to promote business with the Business Improvement District. I know at the meeting last week, there was a substantial commitment to spend upwards of $10,000 to advertise our shops and restaurants through the holiday season on News 12 and through social media. And that's to help remind everybody that our local merchants need their support now more than ever. And alongside of that, I'm working with the assistance of the Conservancy. We're going to be looking at promoting a way to help also our not-for-profits this holiday season, and try and encourage people, instead of buying things, it would be nice if they could possibly make a donation to one of our partners, either the Long Island Maritime Explorium, LISEC, for instance, our Historical Society, a Conservancy, Theater 3, some of our not-for-profit local partners who are just getting cut out at the kneecaps because they're not able to do any of their fundraising initiatives this year. So look for more on that, because I want to make sure that I'm, I'm not doing anything against, the comptroller's office and asking people to help support our not-for-profits during the holiday season. Right, Bri? Okay. Unfortunately, we just got news about an hour ago that we had a bell ringing choir. They were going to be doing a virtual tree lighting for us on December 5th, but we just heard that 2 of the members of the bell ringing choir have come down with COVID. So unfortunately, the bell ringing choir has been canceled for December 5th. It's just like par for the course for year 2020, right? It's very, very disappointing. All other outdoor, any type of outdoor, we had asked, Theater 3 had asked if they could use our stage at Harborfront Park to do a 15-minute Christmas carol. Brilliant production that they do. The governor's office said no. Street character actors cannot be out on our streets with their masks. Even if they are lip syncing to a Charles Dickens song, the governor's office said no, because it's going to promote gatherings of people. So we have been virtually cut off on, from any holiday celebrations this year, folks. So we will continue to do our door decorating for our residents. So encouraging our residents to decorate their doors. There'll be a $200 first prize and a $100 second prize coming out of our trust account for Dickens to help spread some holiday cheer. And of course, we will have our Festival of Trees on the second floor of the Village Center. I think we have 20 trees already committed by various organizations to be decorated so that you can come down and watch some ice skating at Village Center. Hopefully that goes on, and maybe go upstairs and get some holiday cheer on the second floor of the Village Center. Last thing to report is DEC and our beaches. We have some sand dredging projects. I saw some email correspondence today confirming that we are receiving some sand to renourish our beach from the Stony Brook dredging project, Barbara.
Yes, they will begin tomorrow morning. We'll
So
get
we'll-
about 600 yards a week for about 4 to 5 weeks.
That's nice. Yeah. And then the dredging of the Mount Sinai channel will also take place, and we're receiving all of that sand. Do we have a timeline on that one? We'll get the
I
time.
do not yet for that one.
Yeah, I think that one might be actually in the winter months, more into the winter months. But that's great to replenish and renourish our beaches of the sand that we have lost. And thanks to Rebecca, she is continuing to follow up with our environmental engineers, GEI, on the status of our permit with DEC. It looks like they're finalizing some documents, and we're trying to get those documents off of their desk and into DEC so we can finally get our permit in place. Correct, Rebecca?
Yes, it's moving a little bit akin to molasses, but it's moving.
I know. I just gave you the whip. I got tired of whipping and I gave you the whip. So with that, I'm gonna pass the mic over to Trustee Laux.
Thank you, Mayor. Talking about the Festival of Trees, I believe now we have 21 trees that are sitting downstairs in the village center, waiting to get up to the second floor to be decorated. We also have right now the Heron's Art Show going on up on the second floor. We have started renting rooms at the village center, but we have to stay within all of the COVID guidelines. No more than 50 people, masks are required. We will not be renting rooms for birthday parties. The farmer's market is still outdoors at the Harborfront Park every Sunday. From the Recreation Department, the rinks is now preparing for ice skating. The rink is being frozen as we speak tonight. We have made arrangements to get the personnel from the rinks kind of separated from the regular personnel that works at the village center. It's going to be a little difficult, but we think it's going to work out. They're looking at the date of November 27th to start the ice skating. And again, I'm going to repeat this again. The COVID restrictions, the social distancing, and the mandatory masks are going to be closely monitored and required while skating. Although we're limited, we do have other recreational programs running through the winter season. Please check with our Port Jeff website or call the Village Center for more information on these programs. Another reminder again about the residents who have permits to use the village racks for kayaks, canoes, and paddle boards. I see today that most of them have been removed. East Beach is totally clean. We still have a few down at Crystal Brook that need to be taken out. They should be removed by December 1st. Permits for the upcoming year. That question was asked at the last board meeting. We run a lottery during the first week in March. So you don't automatically get a new permit. You have to submit your permit application. From the country club, I previously announced this, but I'm going to repeat it. The tennis season is over. We have left the nets in place. If the weather's decent, you can still play. But there will no longer be any court maintenance. The locker rooms will be open, but only during the membership office hours. That's Tuesday through Saturday at noon. And again, there will be no lights for playing at night. The golf course is going to remain open through December till the end of the month if the weather allows us. I have a reminder to all of our members about the minimum gift cards. They must be used by December 31st. We will not be carrying over any balances beyond that date. Also, the last thing I have here, many members have been asking about renewals of their memberships. We will begin sending out renewal applications immediately after Thanksgiving weekend. This coming year, you will have a deadline for your renewals. So be sure to read your application carefully. You will note that we have discounted rates this year for the early renewals. And that's all I have. Thank you. Did you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was relaxing and thank you, Stan. Nice report. Trustee Miller, how's your internet? You have to unmute, hon. There you
Okay,
go.
we'll see. You gave a rather comprehensive report on the Foxen contract. I hope we can approve phase 3 on that. And we're also just parenthetically for the property, one of the things we're trying to press for is possibly Wartsila types of units, which are very large generating units that go in a modular fashion, but very small compared to the base load plant. But that would also be a generator of electricity and hopefully tax revenue. We are in competition for the batteries. We'll see how that works out. And we need to get some, as you suggested, some further information on how LIPA comes up with its decision-making. As I said at previous meetings, there's, irregardless of anybody's politics, there's a new administration with new priorities and the distinct possibility that more subsidies are given for electric vehicles, which would certainly require more electricity. So we don't know how LIPA premises its requirements, but to underline the importance of this is the fact that they will be making decisions on our plant based on their estimates, which we are not very clear on. So we need to press them. I think it was discussed at our meeting, maybe a letter from Margot or a letter from the board under Margot's signature that, that we want to have some meetings here with PSEG and LIPA where they can explain in detail how they come up with this decrease where, as you have stated, the Northeast and New York State are not looking at declining energy uses. We are actually having a population boomlet in Suffolk County. I don't know, and Nassau too, I believe, but I don't know how that affects electrical usage. It's all a lot of question marks. We need a lot better answers than we get from LIPA, which is playing everything very close to the vest. I had attended a Zoom with the United States Green Building Association. There's a Long Island subcommittee. And I have been pressing electrification. This is a very long shot, but again, new priorities, maybe some kinds of priorities for mass transportation. And we would like to have the Long Island Railroad be cognizant of the potential there and try to move forward towards electrification of the Port Jefferson branch, which is the Sierra Club's #1 priority. So thank you very much. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Bruce. Glad to be able to hear your report. Kathy Ann, Trustee Sneeden.
Yes. Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to report from the code department that our speed trailer is out and about and working very, very well. I know Rebecca, outside of her establishment, has seen the results of this. I know that I sat and watched it for a bit and saw plenty of brake lights when they were made aware of, how fast they were going. So I'm very happy about that. It's now in our second location. And I am just letting residents know to give our Village Hall a call, speak to Joe to get your neighborhood put on our list that we will eventually get around to all of those areas. The Barnum parking lot is going very, very well. There've been a lot of plantings going up, which looks really nice. And we're very happy about the progress being made there. Our last ARC meeting was very productive. We were asked to review the new project from the ferry company at 116 West Broadway. We came up with a lot of great ideas. And thanks to our architect on the ARC, Andrew, he was able to, as we were, voicing our ideas, actually put them right, into action on the pictures and, during the Zoom and show us the screen. And it was very productive. It was very efficient. We came up with, plans A, B, and C, depending on, how receptive they are to making, taking our ideas into account and moving forward. So we have a meeting with their architect the end of this week to keep the project moving. So we're very happy about that. And as far as the school, Margot touched on a couple of those things. The latest was at the last board meeting was that they are putting plans into action to bring the students back at full capacity as of January after the new year. So a lot of the parents are happy about that. I'm personally happy about that. As the mayor mentioned, that it has been shown, the science is showing that transmission rate among children in schools is extremely minimal. So that's very promising, and we all want to see our kids get back to as much normal school life as possibly can. And I'm working with one of the seniors on having them do a senior event, possibly at Village Hall. And in discussions with that group, they want to do something. They've been, robbed of a lot of their activities that they normally would have already had this year as seniors. So, homecoming never happened, and there were, other events that they just couldn't do. So they're trying to do something that, can be safe and organized and, at least get them into that kind of senior year end, not year end, but school end spirit. So I am working with them and hopefully we can put something together soon. And as far as the prom meetings are going, they're continuing, but again, they're kind of up in the air as far as location. So at some point I may be coming to the board asking for some permission for a location on village property, but that's still up in the air. And that pretty much concludes my report. That's it.
So Kathy, and I know you're on the prom committee, is that correct? Or
Yes.
and do they divide it into, because we received an email which I passed on to Stan, I believe, and Lisa Perry and Brian McMillan from a representative asking for use of the golf course for the annual prom outing and relief of fees, which I think, Stan, are you going to discuss that with the CCMAC tomorrow night?
Yes, it's on the agenda for tomorrow evening.
Okay, and then they'll come back to the board and then
Correct.
we'll approve that probably at the next board meeting or so.
Correct.
Yeah, they've broken down now into subcommittees. So that was probably the fundraising committee, because
Okay.
fundraising cannot be done like it normally is with all of those events that are held. The golf should be one that can be done. And they're even talking about just asking, for donations and just kind of being more straightforward with it. It's a new animal. So they're all working to figure it out. So that's
Kathy Ann,
yeah.
Has there been any discussion about having the prom over at the village center?
Yes. The
Okay.
locations that have been discussed and very loosely discussed is the country club, the village center, each of those locations, indoor or outdoor, most likely outdoor in a large tent. An idea was even brought up to put a tent at the beach, East Beach, in the parking lot, with the beach as a beautiful background. And then, of course, the Scraggy Field, which is very large, the bowl at the high school in a tent, and ultimately as usual in the school gym. So all of those kind of ideas are floating around. And I said, I'm willing to bring anything to the board, and there's a lot of options. I don't know what will work, but those are the locations that they're talking about. Obviously, first choice is at the school or on school property, just traditionally speaking. But those other ideas were very enticing to some of the people as well. So that's where we are.
Good. I think all those conversations have to take place, and all those possibilities have to be, taken into consideration depending on what direction we take.
Yeah. And that was how we made the discussion, and the decision on the theme was, something that can be transitional in a way that we have to plan for what we know now, which is an outdoor event. And then if we can turn on a dime and move it inside, we do, or we just say, this is great, and it was a new year, and it's, we'll try something new this year. That's kind of where the mindset is.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Rebecca, Trustee Cassay.
First planning board activity has been mostly covered so far in other reports. Excited about the conifer project, passing that resolution there in the planning board and moving forward. The 116 West Broadway project is what Trustee Snaden was referencing. So the planning board had requested ARC review of that project. And so it sounds like that's going really well, which we're excited to then receive that back at the planning board, whose next meeting is on December 3rd. Typically they don't meet in December, but in order to keep that the ferry building project moving forward, and also to meet with the folks who are looking to open the artisanal dog food store where Say Cheese was at 116B Main Street. They were supposed to have their meeting, but there was some confusion about mailings and that were not done on time. And so their hearing or meeting will also be on December 3rd. And that is all from the planning board. I've been communicating with the PTSA and other related groups and individuals about trying to compile a list of youth volunteer opportunities in Port Jefferson Village. They're very enthusiastic about both getting youth engaged in volunteer opportunities, but also keeping that energy and connectivity within the village. So it would be great if anyone has any ideas to go ahead and email me at trustee-cassay@portjeff.com. These can be any nonprofit or community projects, and we will discuss further. But so far, we have some of our great nonprofits within the village, for teens to come and teens or even younger to come and help out and learn about too the great things that are going on in the village. So that's something I wanted to bring up here. And lastly, there's been, again, discussed a little bit earlier about improvements uptown. And so I've been discussing with some folks here and elsewhere in the village, and we'll be forming a community garden committee here in the village to begin looking more deeply into the feasibility of creating community gardens, which are, for anyone who hasn't experienced them, sort of a fenced-in area with raised beds where individuals can rent a plot to grow vegetables and or flowers for 3 seasons out of the year. Looking to see if and how we would do that in Port Jefferson, specifically in Upper Port. This is something that I have a lot of personal experience with, living both in New York City and living out here, growing up here in St. James. And I've sent around the background sheet to all of you, but the benefits to a community, especially a community that's experiencing an increase in folks living in apartments, is a really wonderful unifier. It's a unifier of people of all different socioeconomic backgrounds, and it also is something that really helps people be stewards of an area. And so this is a project that I'm very excited about. Our incredible village gardener, Karen, is also very enthusiastic about it. And so she will also be on this committee. If anyone is interested in joining the committee, please let me know. And we will be just further looking into this and reporting back on it as it progresses. And if anyone has any thoughts or questions now, please feel free.
No, this is something I think that a number of residents have brought up to us in the past. Karen Markson, of course, has also discussed this as an opportunity. So I'm looking forward to it. I think it would be a great educational tool. And I know up in the upstate New York, in the Ithaca region, they look at their agricultural markets as economic engines. So, and I know that there's a few out east, the Conic East End and Cornell Cooperative are very successful. So, it's a heavy lift, Rebecca, but if anybody can do it, I think you can.
I've got a lot of enthusiasm, and I know there's a lot of great people in this village who are going to step up and carry it with me. So I'm excited.
Good, excellent. Outstanding reports. I have to give the Board of Trustees a pat on the back right now. You guys are working hard and engaged, and want to thank you for your hard work throughout 2020. I'm going to go to my rock at Gibraltar, Brian, our attorney. How you doing, Brian?
Good. I'm good, Mayor. Thank you very much. I don't know what more there is to say, really. There is so much comprehensive reports tonight, but I don't really have anything to add, except I have been in contact with LIPA's council as they're finalizing the numbers with Huntington. And hopefully by the next meeting, I'll have something from them with regard to an update and an upward modification on our LIPA settlement agreement.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate that. Looking forward to that too. Administrator Palumbo. Joe.
The only thing I have to add tonight, and the board does not have to act, is because I missed the deadline for submission. I did distribute mid-afternoon today the hazard communication policy that I would like the board to approve. I apologize to the board or Barbara for not getting the submission in before the deadline, but there were a few other comments that I was working with Brian and his office to finalize. Again, this is a policy that our insurance company had recommended that we adopt. It is a policy that provides for the health and safety of our employees by properly labeling any chemicals that we use here in the village, whether it's a whiteout or gasoline. We need to make sure that it's properly labeled, and we need to also make sure that we have safety data sheets for all of these items within the village. Those safety data sheets must be available or be made available for all employees. And we drafted the policy. It was distributed earlier today. Again, if the board, chooses to act, that's great. If not, we'll just present it at the next board meeting for approval at that time.
Thanks, Joe. And I know that I work with you and Barbara and the treasurer. We just, sorry, was there a question?
Question, Bruce.
Bruce, go ahead. What's your question, hon?
Oh, I just wanted to know how far along are we on with these data sheets? I mean, is this something we've been doing all along?
Well, the good news is most of the facilities, so for example, parks and DPW and the country club, they have their right to know or safety data sheet books, and they are up to date, and they've been retaining and maintaining the safety data sheets for the chemicals that they use. However, we do need to start one here at Village Hall. But again, we don't have many chemicals that we use here, although the law requires us to make sure that we do have a safety data sheet for most of the items that we do have here and use on a regular basis. So we are in the process of putting it together here at Village Hall. But again, The other facilities and other departments have been maintaining this throughout. We just didn't have a formal policy, and this will now formalize that process.
So OSHA, has this requirement for these data sheets, and they are sheets. Is this something we should collect and digitize, that one can have access to any data sheet anywhere in the village? Is that something we might look at?
We could certainly look at digitizing them. Most of them are digitized already. So if you do a Google search for, say, whiteout, the digitized version of the safety data sheet is available there. So we can save it in a digitized form, but it is my understanding that the right to know book or safety data sheets must be maintained and available in paper form for any employee or anyone from the public to view. So we could do both, or we could just do the one and maintain the physical form.
All right, thank you.
Joe, I was in the midst of thanking you and the treasurer and Barbara for compiling a document which looks to reimburse the village for, I think it was approximately $80,000 in expenditures that we had to experience as a result of COVID. And, that's for personal protection equipment, for our code bureau, for the misters that we purchased, for plexiglass, all that stuff that we had to get done. So wanted to make sure that didn't go unnoticed tonight.
Well, hopefully we could get reimbursed from FEMA.
Yeah, I know. All right. The great report, Joe. And I know you guys have been working hard. You're getting a lot of training with the new software, a lot of things moving quickly.
Yes.
Else you wanted to add for tonight's meeting?
That's it.
say
That's it
Nate?
for me. Oh, did you say Denise? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Yeah,
We didn't hear you.
Thank you, Joe. And Denise,
Okay.
you have
The only thing I
anything
just
for me,
wanted to let the public know is we're starting, Long Island Village Clerks and Treasurers Association is starting to collect for Toys for Tots. We have a box located at the Village Center and at Village Hall. So if anybody can, a new unwrapped toy by December 11th.
Yes, definitely. Thank you. Barbara.
Thanks,
Zacharias.
Margot. Also, we have our box, as we do every holiday season, at the Village Center for the Infant Jesus Food Pantry. So that will be at the Village Center. The only thing additional is the next meeting is the public meeting, Monday, December 7th at 7 p.m.
Okay. So I hope, want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. I hope that you all are able to celebrate in a way that is safe and with your family. And for those that are not able to make it around your table, we hope that they're able to be there next year for you at your table. And I know that these are difficult times, but I think here in the village, just look at this Zoom meeting. We have a lot to be very grateful about and for. We live in a wonderful place. We have a great team that works very hard, and they're very responsive. And I really appreciate everything you guys do on behalf of the village. And I love living here, and I love taking care of you guys. So with that, happy Thanksgiving. And I'm going to make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Move to adjourn.
And so moved. All in favor?